Hello again. You would think I learned my lesson. You would think wrong. I know. Apparently a different layer does not unmute my mic. It's fine though, it's fine. So, back again. Hello. Now, as I was saying before, I'm ready to talk a little bit of Cowboys football beyond what I had time to talk about this past Tuesday at Henry's Tavern. Now, we'll be out here. I say here as if I'm here now. I'm not here now. I'll be back at Henry's Tavern for a Cowboys watch party this Sunday at 3:25 is kickoff, so I'll be out there probably an hour before that. And we'll be out there with Law Nation. Now, it's a phantom event. It's not technically a Dallas Prospect event, but I'll be out there. We're all part of the same kind of independent network thing that we've put together. So we're going to have a good time. We're going to have some drinks. We're going to watch some Cowboys football. And you can't really pick your commentator when you're watching the national broadcast, right? Well, you have a way around that now. If you like me, if you like Law Nation, you can have us commentate the game for you. Just mute the TV and just listen to us. Turn us up, and we'll give you all the commentary you need. So, for something like this to be successful, obviously we need people to turn out to Henry's Tavern. It's located in Plano, by the way, Shops of Legacy if you're not aware. But basically, what this all boils down to is we get people in the door. Henry's is happy with us. And I think they're giving free appetizers. The link is down below, YouTube. So it's down below in the description. It's a free appetizer that you'll get as long as you show them that, or you tell them you're there for the Phantom event or the Cowboys watch party even. You'll get a free appetizer as well. Like I said, you'll hang out with us, and we'll have a good time. Right now, we got a set up for a 4-game package right now with them, so we're scheduled to be with them through the first few weeks. Xavier Giles, what's up? Go Cowboys, yes sir. So we're set up through the first 4 weeks, but the idea is we want to do this the whole season. So if we get good turnout, if we get people in the door and they're digging what we're laying down basically, then we're gonna do this the whole season for them. And I'm not gonna lie, that is a lot of work on my part and everything, hauling all my equipment and everything there, doing infinite tests so I avoid these mistakes like I just did again, which thank you, Gleh, for pointing that out, because I've somehow 2 of my last 3 streams made an ass out of myself. I guess it's not that hard to do, really, but all the same, I am stoked for this game to get here, man. This is going to be a really good matchup. It's not just that Cowboys football has been gone for so long. I think it's a genuinely intriguing matchup. Now, I've broken down basically 5 key matchups in this game that I'm going to be keeping an eye on and that I'm going to be talking about throughout the game. And I'm going to preview them a little bit for you here as well. Now, it's 5, you could almost say 6, but I'm not going to get into that because that's just extra work. I'm kidding. It's kind of 5 and 5B or 5A. I don't know how you would classify that, but they go together pretty much. First and foremost, I'm interested to see how Joe Looney does filling in at center in Travis Frederick's absence. Now, he's going to have to go against Dontari Poe, which is no pushover for Carolina. So Dallas is going to have a tough draw right there. I think Looney is serviceable, and depending on how long you need him this season, he'll do fine. But if Dallas needs him for 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 weeks, they might start to run into trouble, but you don't know what the situation is with Travis Frederick. He seems optimistic that he could return in more short order than we're expecting. That's why the Cowboys did not put him on the IR to return list, which would put him out for 8 weeks. Instead, they're going to basically leave him on the 53-man roster, and in the meantime, you're going to have Joe Looney. I know Frederick said he's already kind of working out a little bit, and it's going to be something where it's not like he's at 60% strength right now, and he has to just work out, and it's like point by point by point, 61, 62, 63, getting back up to 100% strength. It comes in chunks from what he said, from what he's been told by the doctors. So this week he might be at 65% his normal strength. Next week he might be at 75%. Like, it's going to show up like that. And then it's just the last, I think he put it as the last 5% maybe that he has to really work back from having lost due to the time off from his normal weight routine. So that's not as concerning, but you got to see it play out. In the meantime, yes, Joe Looney versus Dontari Poe, especially week 1, that's a crucial matchup. And the one that goes with it, in my opinion, is Cowboys rookie Connor Williams matching up against Kawan Short. Now, this one, to me, you could almost make a case that it's as important, if not more important, than Joe Looney's matchup. And the reason I point to that is because, as I said, Connor Williams is a rookie, and Short is a handful to have to deal with. So part of why you felt so secure plugging in Connor Williams there on the starting offensive line is because you said, okay, he's between Travis Frederick and Tyron Smith. That's a pretty good way to succeed. Well, now Travis isn't there, and hopefully Tyron's back is good. What up, Coops11? So, as a result of that, the Cowboys are going to have to figure out... I just noticed my comments aren't even displaying on the feed for you guys. What is up with that? Get it together, DDP. Get it together. I don't know why those aren't showing. Let me see. There we go. Now you're back. Woo, magic. So, yeah, now you got to wonder about that a little bit, because you have to hope that he can hold his own against Short, because if he can't hold his own without a little bit of help, Joe Looney's going to have to suddenly look over his shoulder. And I just said Joe Looney's got a tough matchup of his own. So now Joe Looney's going to have to worry a little bit about Short getting past Connor Williams if that happens, which means Dontari Poe can... It's a whole domino process if that happens. So those two kind of go together. It's kind of Connor Williams and Joe Looney against Short and Dontari Poe as far as my key matchup, my first key matchup. I know, it's kind of like I'm cheating right off the bat. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. My second key matchup I have is... I want to see how Kayvon Frazier, who's going to have to start for the Cowboys because Xavier Woods is out injured with a hamstring. I want to see how Kayvon Frazier can hold up against Cam Newton. Now, yes, you also have Jeff Heath who's filling in this regard, but I think in the case of Jeff Heath, he's no Earl Thomas, obviously, but Jeff Heath is probably on this roster as it stands today the best strong safety or free safety. Take your pick. He's probably the best at both on this roster right now. And Dallas is going to try and protect Kayvon Frazier, because Kayvon Frazier is a more play up at the line of scrimmage, lay the boom, kind of plays a little bit like a Cam Chancellor back in the day for Seattle. I say back in the day, the dude just retired. But he kind of plays that style, and that's why Dallas... that's not why, but that's a big part of why Dallas has interest in a Earl Thomas, because for a guy like Kayvon Frazier to really be at his best, you got to have the other safety who can go sideline to sideline and just be a ball hawk out there. Jeff Heath, he's okay in that department. He takes some really bad angles, which can get him burned a lot. We saw that early last year, and that was obviously massively concerning, but if he can address that, then we'll see. Now, he'll probably be the one playing free safety in this game, and they'll probably move Kayvon to strong safety for this game to try and shield him a little bit from Cam. But there are going to be moments where he's going to have to defend without, drawing a penalty or something like that against a receiver or tight end or something. So Dallas is going to need him to step up. And if he can do that, they can be successful. Now, this one, if I were to drill down for the sub-layer here for another one that kind of goes hand in hand, I would tell you the Dallas defensive line versus the Carolina offensive line. And this is one thing that will probably help Kayvon. The Carolina Panther offensive line is in shambles. It is all beat up. It is all garbage. Not garbage. That's a little... it's bad. It's bad. Let's just leave it at that. It's injured and just walking wounded out there. And Dallas's strength on this defense, I feel, is the defensive line. Not only do you have DeMarcus Lawrence's 14.5 sacks returning from last year. By the way, I think he'll probably end up going double-digit sacks again this year. Not only do you have him in the mix, but you have Randy Gregory back, who you had none last year. You had him exactly no games last year. So now you have him in the mix, and he's flashing. He is flashing something fierce, because a lot of what makes him great isn't his technique, it's his natural ability. And even with the time off of football, you don't lose that. So I think Randy Gregory can make an impact in this game. Believe it or not, that's huge for Dallas, the prospect of having him. Because when we heard that David Irving was out for 4 weeks because of another suspension, I got a little bit nervous about the matchup. But then when Randy Gregory came back and we saw him flash, I thought, okay, Irving's obviously a defensive tackle as opposed to an end, but at the same time, it's a guy that gets after the quarterback and gets a lot of pressure, so they might be all right. And then once Irving returns after week 4, they'll be damn good. But even now, I think their strength is in that defensive line. They're going to have Randy Gregory. They're going to have DeMarcus Lawrence. They're going to have, say what you want, he's technically sound, Tyrone Crawford. They're going to have Taco Charlton, who I think will be better this year. I think it'll be a continuation of kind of what you saw towards the end of last year, where he started making plays suddenly. He racked up 2 or 2.5 sacks late in the year last year. I think his first one actually came against Kansas City, and then I think he got one against Seattle. But nevertheless, I think you'll see the Dallas defensive line making plays. I'd even mention Anton Woods. I mean, that dude's got something. So it'll be really interesting to see how the Dallas defensive line can get immediate pressure on Cam Newton, because the best way to protect the back end of your defense is to collapse the pocket and get immediate pressure on the quarterback. Now, Cam Newton's good on the run, even throwing on the run, just like Dak, but he's not an overall accurate quarterback. So as long as you don't let him sit back there and really dial in, I think you can have an advantage in that part of the game. Now, the next item is what I think the biggest matchup here. Now, obviously, there's going to be assistance in this regard, but I think this is going to be another one of those situations where, because of his rap last year and because of their strength overall and right now, you're going to see Carolina try and exploit this. It's going to be a damn good measuring stick for how far Jalen Smith has come back from his injury. Last year, Jalen Smith, he started fine, but he got exposed badly. He wasn't fully recovered. He still had drop foot. Changing directions, he was slow. He had a hitch, kind of a hitch in his movement, and he didn't move through traffic very confidently. None of that appears to be the case this year. He has been one of the standouts of training camp, and it's actually because he's been so good in camp that we're not even freaking out over the fact that we haven't really seen LVE, Leighton Vander Esch, on the field for us since the first preseason game. If you recall, when Leighton Vander Esch pulled his groin, that sounds awfully sexual, when he strained his groin, well, now that I said that, when he got hurt in the groinal region, they told us it wasn't that serious, but yet he missed the final 3 preseason games. Granted, he was probably always going to miss the 4th one. He missed 2 preseason games that he might have played, should have played, and he returned to practice this week. What up, Brett Bender? But in returning to practice this week, he's still a real possibility for a basically healthy scratch where he won't dress out for this road trip, and they'll probably play Joe Thomas because Joe Thomas has looked like a beast too, and Joe Thomas can plug in right now to special teams and be a rotational guy as well. That does a good job. Now, in a sense, he kind of does the same stuff that Leighton Vander Esch does. Granted, he doesn't have near the ceiling Leighton Vander Esch does, so I bet you anything Leighton doesn't dress out for this first game. And that's kind of been ignored because of how good Jalen's been in camp. Like the fact that the number 1 pick for the Cowboys, pick 19, won't even dress out week 1. Taco's sitting over here like, are you kidding me? Like, I got my head chewed off for anything I did last year. I didn't get a sack in the first few weeks. I was basically like, wait, you're telling me Taco played 27 snaps? I never saw him. Like, that was true, and that's fair criticism. But he's got to be sitting over here like, I was picked like 29. I was the back end of the damn first round. And this guy's supposed to be, he's in starter territory in the top 20, and he's not even going to dress out week 1, and no one's saying shit. It's ridiculous. But it is what it is. So it's going to be a measuring stick of how good Jalen can do against Christian McCaffrey. Why? Because Christian McCaffrey was what made that Carolina offense finally click late last year when they rattled off those wins, went to 11-5, and made the playoffs. It was because they finally got him going. They got him healthy. They figured out how to use him in the offense, and he finally got a chance to start making a real impact. That changed everything for the Carolina Panthers. Now, Christian McCaffrey is a fantastic back, running the ball, catching the ball. I mean, he's really going to be a challenge for Dallas. Now, part of that will be helped out by Sean Lee. General Lee, we know how he has just this nose for the ball, snuffs out these plays before they even develop. And you will see a lot of that, but you know damn well Carolina's sitting here like, Atlanta tore this kid up, this kid being Jalen, tore this kid up last year. All they had to do was get him stretching out wide and then just go right at him. So you know they're going to be looking to find ways to match up Jalen on Christian McCaffrey to try and exploit his movement. Now, Jalen has shown significant improvement in that area as far as moving through traffic, changing directions. There's no hitch in his step. There's no get up when he changes directions and gets going. He looks as close. He looks, I'll be honest, he looks closer to Notre Dame Jalen Smith than I thought he would ever get. I don't think he'll ever get quite back there, but I am admittedly very surprised in a pleasant way how close he is to that Jalen Smith. Diego, what's up? Can't wait to see Tavon Austin. Tavon Austin will be a very interesting point as well for this Cowboys offense with that receiving core, because they are doubted. They're probably the most questioned and doubted and disrespected receiving core in the league at this point. And I think it's hilarious because people only say that because Dez isn't there. So it's like, okay, you put Dez on this team right now. Does that suddenly make them one of the better ones? No. Like, I don't know. I think, honestly, it might be an addition through subtraction situation. But Christian McCaffrey versus Jalen Smith, that's going to be a real test for Jalen. And he might only have a few matchups like that in the game where he suddenly got to get out in space and deal with Christian McCaffrey, and whether it's in pursuit or what have you. And he's going to have to show out and show he can deal with it. So that's the challenge for sure. Now, flipping to the other side here, we're going to look at Zeke versus Luke Kuechly. Now, this is interesting to me because Luke Kuechly is kind of Carolina's Sean Lee. Really smart, really talented, basically quarterback for their defense, same way Sean Lee is. He's even had his share of injuries like Sean Lee. I don't think he's had as many, but he's had his share for sure. And his career will probably ultimately be cut a little bit short by those injuries, just like Sean Lee's will. But it's interesting to look at what he can bring to the table, because Zeke versus him is going to be a similar situation to Sean Lee when he's facing an opposing running back. Sniffing out the play, crashing the line, and getting to guys right around the line of scrimmage or sometimes even in the backfield. You're going to see a lot of that from Kuechly. Now, I don't know how many of you, if you aren't, you should be, how many of you read my articles on the DallasProspect.com. Yes, that's right. I also write articles. I know, crazy, right? But I wrote an article. Now, I wrote this the very start of the off season, I believe. Might have even been late last season when we were still in season. And I've circulated it again, reposted it. But it's basically talking about how Dallas does not use Zeke like Le'Veon Bell. They should, and I'm mad as hell that they don't. I'm paraphrasing that a little bit, but that's the sentiment behind it. Because I think Zeke, you don't have to go full Le'Veon Bell, but Zeke has that ability. And now with the receiving core being what it is, I think him being included in the passing game is more important than ever. If you look at just 2 of his receptions in his first 2 years, he took the one versus Pittsburgh, at Pittsburgh, 83 yards to the house on just a little screen dump-off, a little bubble screen. He did the same thing on almost the same play last year at San Francisco when he goes 70 yards to the house. Yo, Brennan Scala, what's up? We got a Le'Veon fan here. Mark my words, Brennan, Zeke will be more involved in the passing game this year. Now, again, I said don't go full Le'Veon, but he will be more involved in the passing game. Bank on it. We can make a bet on that. But they need to figure out a way to get Zeke. Just change things up a little bit. You saw a couple times in training camp where they would come out of a huddle in which they had Tavon Austin, Cole Beasley, and Zeke out there. But then when they broke the huddle, they would send Tavon to the backfield in place of Zeke, and Zeke would line up in the slot. Again, I don't expect to see a whole lot of that, but he's got the ability to do it. He did it well at Ohio State whenever he was asked to do it. So he's got the ability, and everything I'm hearing is that Dallas is going to look to get him more involved in that way this year because he needs to be a safety valve for Dak and for this receiving core. So because of that, I put a lot of expectation on at least once or twice in this game, you're going to see Zeke lined up differently than we've seen before. Because I don't know that a bubble screen will fool anyone this time around because we've seen him do it a couple times previously. And a guy like Luke Kuechly, who's really smart and can explode to the ball, seek out the ball basically in the way Sean Lee does, he's going to crash down on the play, and it's not going to be a 70-yard gain most likely. It's going to be something that's snuffed out at or near the line of scrimmage, or maybe Zeke falls forward for a few yards. So they're going to have to be a little more creative, and I would argue that because of Dallas's interior of its line not being as strong as usual, they're going to have to be more creative anyway. Like, their identity is built on smash mouth football. That's great. They can still do a fair bit of that, but you can't do it as often as usual. You can't do it the same way because you don't have the same parts. You don't have Travis Frederick there. Yes, you do have Zach Martin back, but you don't have Travis Frederick, and you do still have a rookie next to him. And the Panthers' defensive line is good, man. They held Alvin Kamara in check last year when they faced the Saints late in the season. So they can do some things, man. That's a strong suit for them as well. And so I look at that and I say Dallas is going to have to be quick with the ball and be a little creative. Let's see, what's another interesting matchup I had labeled? Talked about Jalen. Talked about the 2 offensive lineman matchups. Talked about Cam versus Kayvon. I had one more, I feel like, but now I've lost my train of thought. So if I think of it, I'll circle back to it. But ultimately, I think this is going to be a game where Dallas's best advantage will be if it can strike early. And I don't know that it's built to do that. I think that Zeke might start strong just because I think he's got the ability to. But I do think Carolina settles in and basically says, we're not going to let Zeke beat us. We're going to stack the box, and we're going to force Dak and this receiving core to beat us. Now, that's why I say every now and then you're going to have to get a little creative and find ways to get Zeke the ball in space. That'll help, but that's not going to do everything for you. You still got to move the ball. We'll probably see who's officially kick returner. The kickoff returner is Deontay Thompson, and the punt returner is Tavon Austin. Tavon is punt returner, Brett. Deontay Thompson is the kickoff returner. So that's what you're looking at there. But I think Dallas is going to have to find a way to move the ball. And I do think you might see some small flash from Michael Gallup in this first game. I think Michael Gallup's a stud. I think he's going to be a very, very good receiver. But I think it's going to be in the later part of the season where you see him take that next step. I think in the meantime, we get some flashes. And that flash might just be he makes a 12-yard reception and then jukes his dude out of his shoes before stepping out of bounds, and it's like a 15-yard game. But you're like, ooh, damn. You'll see something like that, or maybe you'll see something like his first preseason game where he gets behind his dude with a slick move, creates just a little bit of space, and then pulls in a nice touchdown pass. We'll see. Dak has a pretty good rapport going with him in training camp, and it's clear that Dak senses that there is some kind of connection there, and they're building. Honestly, it seems like he's building better chemistry with him than he did with Dez. But to be fair, 2 preseasons ago, all we saw in training camp was Dak to Dez being lethal, and then last season it was not. So maybe that's getting a cart before the horse, that whole bit. So I think what this game will boil down to is the war of the trenches. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, and I think Dallas is going to have to come back, because I think ultimately what you're going to see is a situation where Dallas falls behind early, and maybe that's 10-3, 10-7, something like that. And I think it's going to have to rely on its defense, whether that means creating a fumble, whether that means Derek Wiggins. I'm just stopping in to say these refs are garbage. Do I think Rico will get a couple of snaps? Hold on, I'll address that in a sec. I think it's going to rely on the defense, whether they can create a fumble, whether they can get a tip pass interception. That's why I have the result I have. And I'll say it now. I have Dallas winning this game 19-17. And I think what it's going to boil down to is late in the game, maybe somewhere in the 6 to 7 minute mark of the fourth quarter, you're going to see a tipped pass intercepted somewhere deep in Carolina territory. Check you later, Derek. Somewhere deep in Carolina territory that'll set up Dallas for the go-ahead touchdown to steal a win late in the game. I think Zeke will be efficient, but I don't think it's going to be anything that knocks your socks off. Maybe something like 86 yards on the ground and a score. But, that's what they're going to have to do until they get Travis Frederick back, whenever that is. And it might not even be at all this year. I mean, that's always a possibility we have to entertain. If they can hold out till they get him back, and if they can wait until David Irving also comes back, once he comes back, this defensive line could just be all kinds of nasty. But until then, we don't know. It looks good. We like what we see. But in a small dose of preseason, the starting defense allowed 0 points. I think it had a passer rating it allowed of like 66 or something like that. And what was it? Like 2.2 yards on average against the rush. That was like against something like 17 carries for 38 yards, something to that effect. But your question, does Rico Gathers get a couple snaps this game? He better. I mean, I'll be honest. Rico's the 3rd tight end, so he's not the 4th tight end. That's Dalton Schultz, and I think Schultz has a bright future, but he's way farther from where he needs to be than I expected him to be honest. Your starter is going to be Jeff Swaim at tight end. Then you got Blake Jarwin, then you got Rico. And the thing about Rico, when you look at him, yeah, he's not a great technical blocker, but dude, he's 6'8", 280. If you get him in front of a dude, even if his technique's bad, he's still 6'8", 280. It's going to be hard to move him out of the way and really collapse down and create pressure in that way. And he can win jump balls like nobody's business, even if he's not a crisp route runner, even if he doesn't run routes at the right depth. As long as he goes in the right general area, he always has the ability to win jump balls. So in that regard, I think that he will see red zone opportunities. How many? I don't know. Will he do something? I hope so, because I think that this is a critical year for him. I didn't think he'd make the roster, to be honest. I thought when he got busted for marijuana the night before in Frisco, I thought that pretty much sealed his fate in Dallas. But we'll see. I'm not even entertained the idea of Romo because Romo literally broke his back or collarbone or whatever in like each of his last 4 seasons. He had some kind of broken bone injury, so there's nothing to humor there. If you humored anything, it'd be looking for the next quarterback, and I think Dak's got this year to prove whether or not he can do it, because the good has so far outweighed the bad. But I think this is going to be an interesting game for Dallas. Rico will get his opportunities, I presume, and he should. He's got the ability to win jump balls. I mean, hell, when you're 6'8" and that big, who's going to guard you in that situation? Throw a ball up high. He should win every damn jump ball because the guys guarding him are going to be something in the neighborhood of, 6 foot, 6'1"? I mean, you would say a bigger corner is 6'1", 6'2". So, yeah, that's your mismatch opportunity there. Fade route would be good for him. I would say fade route's not Dak's strongest thing, but, I mean, if you got a bigger target doing a fade, then maybe it's fine. Hope Seattle will reconsider by week 4 regarding Earl Thomas. I think it's a possibility because week 3 versus Dallas is Seattle's home opener. And if they had made the deal at the draft, if Connor Williams hadn't been there in the second round, Dallas would have made the trade for Earl Thomas then because Seattle would have taken it too. And, they saw Connor Williams there and said, oh, wait, well, we got a first-round grade on him, and we really, really want to take care of our offensive line. And reinforce that for years as opposed to a short-term investment of a 30-year-old safety, even if he is still currently playing at a very high level. And so they made that call, which I think was the right call. And I think now we look at it and Seattle's like, even with Dallas upping its offer back to a 2, I think Seattle looks at it and they're like, we don't want to do our home opener with Earl Thomas on the other side of the field. That's just awkward. So I think there could be something where the deal gets done after week 3. And there is some precedent for that. There was a situation last year during that Seattle-Houston game in which Deshaun Watson went nuts. It was like a 41-38 win for Seattle. And you had someone who started, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I want to say it was the offensive lineman Dre Brown maybe, who was playing for Houston. He played the game for Houston and before the next morning was traded to Seattle. Now that was a really interesting sight because you're like, what changed in that time? And I just noticed the comments aren't even scrolling as you guys continue messaging. What is up with that? Let's see. Refresh. Come back to me. There we are. So you have that situation there where there is precedent for that because obviously a deal had to have been in place already, but we could see something similar for that. Or maybe they don't get a deal done in if Earl has to play because if he didn't play by week 10, first of all, the millions of dollars he's leaving behind in the form of fines. But if he didn't play by week 10, then he wasn't going to be eligible for free agency. So he had to do that no matter what. You saw all that work out the way it did. He's going to be back. He's pissed off. He doesn't want to be there, but he'll be professional apparently, which, that is what it is. And now there's a chance Dallas gets him anyway this offseason. You'd like him now, but no way in hell you give up a first for him now. Because what you're effectively doing, if you're so certain you're going to get him this summer, why do you drop a 1 for 1 year of Earl Thomas? You don't. I would argue, why do you drop a 2 for 1 year of Earl Thomas? A 3, I felt great about. A 2, okay, sure. We tend to make, hey, shout out Brennan Scala, thanks for the donation, sir. We feel great about the situation if we're looking at a 2. Because, think about it this way. Dallas tends to make gambles on its second-round picks. Funnily enough, 2 of them that were 2 of their longer shot second-round picks actually look like they could finally really pay dividends for Dallas. Jalen Smith and Randy Gregory. Now, for very different reasons, people said that they thought they would never be legitimate cogs of Dallas's foundation. You don't have a cog in the foundation. That is not that I'm mixing phrases and analogies here. But no one ever thought that they would be significant difference makers on this Dallas team. Randy Gregory looked like he really, really wanted to make sure he wasn't, But nevertheless, he's found his way back. It appears he's gotten clean for what the NFL requires him to be. And that's good for him. That's going to give him a chance. But he's out of chances. If he messes up again, whether that's tomorrow, whether that's a year from now, 5 years from now, he's done, according to their policies. So we'll see. But he's facing that. But he looks damn good. He looks like he could be a solid contributor on this defensive line, which will probably be the strength of the Cowboys' defense. And then Jalen, like I said, people thought he'd never play again. Like Randy Gregory, they thought he'd flame out. And well, that's ironic given he was flaming up. But yeah, people thought Jalen Smith would never play again. Like people said last year, like, oh, well, that's inspiring that he got to play at all. I mean, he wasn't that great for the most part of the season, but at least he got out there and showed he could still do it and recover. That's impressive. Well, now you look at it and you're like, hey, he looks like that dude we drafted. Awesome. He looks like the player we saw in those highlights from Notre Dame. That's what we needed. So it's interesting to see how that's kind of come about. Credit to both of those guys for finding their way here. Dallas had two very, very long shot picks, and they're panning out finally. Another interesting note is because of his suspension when he missed the whole year, we have another year after this year of Randy Gregory under contract for his rookie deal. So that's good too. You don't have to fear like, oh, what if he has like 9 sacks this year and then we freak out like, oh God, can we trust paying him big money? I would be right there with you agreeing that I don't know if I feel good about that, but if he can do it for 2 years, then okay, maybe he is good. Maybe he is fully clean now. But we'll see. Let me hit some of the questions here. So yeah, I said Seattle could reconsider by then. I think that they might even be in agreement of, hey, we'll revisit this then, but that probably sounds good. Only if the Cowboys are winning, they don't do anything if they are 1-3 or 2-2. Yeah, I think that what you're probably going to be looking at for the Cowboys start, they drew a really tough division this year. The NFC South sent 3 teams to the playoffs last year. The Saints, the Panthers, and the Falcons. All three are contenders. I would argue of the 3, Carolina is the one you would rather have to deal with if you have to deal with one. But even still, that's not an easy draw. Because of their offensive line, I think they're gettable. And I think if Dallas is going to go anything like 10-6 this year, which is what I tentatively penciled them in at, I think they're going to have to go 3-1 against the division. I don't even think 2-2 is going to get it done. And I have them winning the Panthers game. And they play the Saints late in the year. I think they got the Falcons pretty early too. And on that one, I'm very mixed feelings because at the start of before the Frederick development, I had that penciled in as a win for Dallas only because last year at Atlanta, which they'll have to go back to Atlanta this year again too, it was a huge humiliation for Dallas. It was where everything went wrong for the season because if you recall, the week before versus Kansas City was Dallas's best performance of the season. It looked the most like the 2016 Cowboys with the exception of the one play before halftime with Tyreek Hill. That was what they were trying to do, and it all went wrong after Atlanta. And so I at the time thought they're going to be up for this game. They're going to be pissed off and determined to make an example out of it at Atlanta. Now, I don't know if they would make a quote-unquote example because Atlanta is a very good team, but I did have them winning that game initially. Now, I'm not so sure, especially if we don't have Travis Frederick. That's going to be tough as well. I wish we could have used Dan Bailey as trade bait. Yeah, I don't know what happened with the Bailey thing other than maybe it would have been hard to trade him because teams would have been like, whoa, you're willing to trade the second most accurate kicker in NFL history? Why? What's wrong with him? All we know is that he melted down late last year. If you're willing to trade him, that must suggest something's wrong. So maybe that played into the decision. They probably could have gotten something for him, but I don't know how much, and I do think teams would have wised up to it. To be clear on that, I don't fully understand or agree with their decision to cut Dan Bailey in favor of a guy that's never kicked in an NFL game, at least a regular season game. Instead, they had a guy who has bounced around, Brett Maher, who has kicked in the CFL the past few years. He was all Big East 3 years in a row at Nebraska, and interestingly enough, he was actually on the Cowboys training camp roster in 2013 with Dan Bailey, and he lost that competition to Dan Bailey, bounced around a few years, came back this year, and apparently won the competition. Not just his 57-yarder in the final preseason game, but we only saw Dan Bailey kick one field goal in the preseason. Like, I know he had a couple of rough days in a row in camp, but there must be something more we're not aware of, because Dallas felt like between his money, $3.4 million compared to $480,000 for Maher, and between his health, he had a back injury 2 years ago and then a groin last year, and his percentages overall were kind of declining. Now, granted, I think last year was more of an anomaly than anything. They seemed to make up their mind that it didn't add up financially anymore, which seems crazy to me because I'm looking at them like, you have $17 million in cap space. He's not breaking your back. What up, Barry? Let's see here. 8 to 10 sacks easily for Randy, says Diego. I would be thrilled with that. Let's see him stay on the field and stay healthy. He played pretty much all of 2015, and he had an high ankle sprain that cost him some time. April Staten, the last few years we've been picking low-grade picks in the first round and first-round picks in the second. Why not give a first for Earl Thomas? I prefer third, but just a thought. Seattle picks crap in the draft anyway. Here's the thing. Here's how I would do a first for Earl Thomas. I would do a first for Earl Thomas if I was also getting back a third. Because what you're looking at that point, if you're picking somewhere in the, let's say, the 27 to 30 range, if you're picking somewhere in that range and then you back up, so you lose your first, you're effectively then falling back to what, like the 80, like 79, 80 range? I mean, that's a significant drop-off in that regard, and I think that would still be a worthwhile investment because Dallas has done well in that area. So that would be interesting to me, but I look at it this way. Earl Thomas is going to come to Dallas. Assuming Seattle doesn't completely flip out of nowhere, he's going to be in Dallas next year. Yes, he'll be a year older, but why give up a first rounder just to get him now? Like, looking at this team now, it looks like a very good young team. It has two guys over the age of 30, one of which is Sean Lee, the other of which is now the long snapper. Okay? It's a damn young team. Why do you treat this year right now as win now? Like, why is it critical win now? Is it the ideal time to do it? I say yes, because teams typically are able to do more when their quarterback is on his rookie deal. I always point to Seattle in that case. They spent a lot of money on the defense while they didn't have to worry about Russell Wilson. They won their Super Bowl, and they went back to another Super Bowl when he was on his rookie deal. Then as soon as he got paid, they couldn't hang on to a bunch of those defensive guys when their contracts came due, and so it turned into trade you away and let you leave in free agency and left and right until now there is no Legion of Boom. Earl Thomas is all that's left of that. Yes, they have Bobby Wagner, who's good, but Legion of Boom was always the secondary. It wasn't the defense as a whole. So I look at that and I say, why force the issue now? Why force the issue now for a first, even if we're talking about a pick 29 or something like that? Because in that range, you could still find a pretty damn good receiver, because now, you know, with receiver being another one, or tight end, those are both pretty glaring perceived weaknesses right now for the Cowboys. And I would argue that, yeah, they are. They are two of the weaker places for the Cowboys roster right now. And in that range, that late first round range, especially at receiver, you can find some really good talent there. I mean, receivers are kind of being downgraded in the eyes of a lot of people the way running backs were being downgraded previously. So you could get your legit guy there. I mean, I don't remember where Calvin Ridley went. I think he was still in the teens, but like DJ Moore, the next receiver, he went in that range. You could have gotten like a Cortland Sutton, who's basically a Dez clone in that range. I mean, there's stuff you could do if you're in that position. I wouldn't give up a first for Earl, knowing that I'm probably getting him next year anyway. That's just my personal thing. Or if I do, it's only because I'm getting back a third as well. So I keep the same number of picks. It's just picking later. Let's see here. Just saw a video of the new guy hitting a 65-yarder. Yeah, I saw that too. It is impressive. It shows leg strength, but here's the thing. There's no pressure. There's no rush. And when you're kicking 65 yards, you have to kick that ball damn low because you can't get any wind under it. You can't arc it. You just have to kick that nearly cursed unintentionally. You have to kick that S in a straight line pretty much. And you're not going to be able to kick that over a offensive and defensive line in that case. So you're just not going to be able to, especially then when you got guys standing up and swatting at the ball. So I would just say in that circumstance, it's impressive to see the leg strength. You might see Dallas willing to try a 57-yarder, maybe even if they're in a bind, a 60-yarder. But it's one of those things where it's nice to see, but it's not indicative of real game simulation. Let's see, Barry. Kayvon Frazier is a hard hitter. He is, and he's got the makeup, according to Chris Richard, of a Cam Chancellor, who Seattle used to play up around the line of scrimmage a little bit more. Basically played him like another linebacker. But you can only really do that if you got hey, shocker, Earl Thomas on the back end who could go sideline to sideline and still be a ball hawk and a playmaker. So for Kayvon Frazier to reach his full potential, they kind of need Earl Thomas. But, I already got into the whole Earl Thomas thing. So I think that's how he's best suited. Dallas is going to have to be careful protecting him against Cam Newton this week. Him being Frazier. Great leg, but we don't know how much clutch. Pressure moments, yep. Problem is he's under so much pressure he misses one field goal. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Brennan's right on that. If the new guy comes in, he's already under immense pressure because he's replacing a legend. Like, Dan Bailey is the only kicker in Cowboy history to make the Pro Bowl. He was the leading scorer of the team 7 consecutive seasons, and he basically had 5 bad weeks and got cut. That's an unforgiving league, man. And he was a huge fan favorite because he was automatic Dan, and that's why fans were shocked. Even with him and his performance at the end of last year, they were like, whoa, what? We were having a kicking competition? Who decided this? So yeah, if the new guy, if Marr misses 1 or 2 kicks, if he misses 2 kicks this weekend, it's going to get ugly. And the thing is, there's no going back. Dan Bailey will be signed by then. In fact, I'm expecting Dan Bailey to be signed right after week 1 concludes, and I don't think he's coming back here even if they offered something. Even if the new guy cratered and they're like, I didn't mean it, Dan. Here's double your salary, which, by the way, they could do because, as I said, they have $17 million in cap space right now. Can't believe they're okay with Cooper Rush as the backup. What are they thinking? They are thinking Dak is very durable, and they pray they don't have to rely on anyone else. They also are afraid of giving up any kind of assets to go get someone. That's why they weren't in the market in the slightest for Teddy Bridgewater, who fetched a 3rd rounder and also sent back a 6th, I want to say, for New Orleans. And I love the move for New Orleans. I would have liked it for Dallas, but they decided they didn't want to invest that. Similarly, I thought, okay, maybe RG3 is a decent backup because, again, ideally, you don't have to play him. But if you do, he's a mobile quarterback. You don't want him to be like Dak mobile versus what RG3 was as mobile is not the same thing. And RG3 is not that same RG3, obviously. But he had a pretty good preseason, and I would argue if you're using him in spot duty for a couple weeks maybe, if Dak does have to miss time, then that's a reasonable fill-in. And it's a guy I like a lot more than Cooper Rush. But that's not all. So Cooper Rush is your guy. Mike White is your guy of the future, at least with regard to the backup job. We'll see. I think Mike White has potential to eventually challenge Dak if Dak doesn't continue to advance beyond what we saw last season. But Mike White's going to need some time to get there because he's coming from Western Kentucky. He's got great arm talent and strength, and he's got good size, but he hasn't he hasn't had to go against the same level of competition. So you got to get it right up top first. What other options are there in the market, though? Yeah, I just went through some of those. There's not a lot, really. Why not give up everything if this team is a Super Bowl team? I don't think this is a Super Bowl team yet, honestly, Brennan. I think that this is a team that they were 9-7 last year. I think the team is better than last year, but I also think they have a harder schedule than last year, so they might still be like 9-7. Hell, they could be 8-8. We don't know. But I don't think it is a Super Bowl team yet. I think that they are... I think they're kind of... I don't want to call them the 91 Cowboys, but they're a team that's like a year or two away where you can kind of squint and see it, and you're like, they could be really special here soon if they keep developing, you know, they keep the similar trajectory and they can add one, maybe two other pieces. And Earl might be one of those pieces. But again, I don't think you spend a one. If you do choose to spend a two, okay, you put Earl on this team. You might be a playoff team, but I don't think you're a Super Bowl team. I think that there are too many other holes and question marks right now. One of the glaring ones being we don't know what Travis Frederick's health is. So have to figure that out. April, okay, good perspective, thanks. I guess that was in regard to the previous question you had. Account for the stadium, win factor, pressure, looked intimidating. I hope Zach Martin is at least 90%. Yeah, I think he returned early to practice, and reports are he's looked good. So I think Zach Martin is pretty close to 100%, and that's good because if he was also out, I would give Dallas no chance in this game. I honestly wouldn't because the interior of that line would be Looney. Anger is the guy's name now, one of the new linemen they picked up from Kansas City. That was who they traded the cornerback for. You'd have him probably, and then you would also have, why am I blanking? Oh yeah, Connor Williams. I was thinking I'd already named him for some reason. Yeah, so that would not be good this week if that was what you had. But thankfully they do have Zach Martin, so that gives at least some support. That's why I think Romo may come back. 0 chance Rush plays more than half a game if Dak goes down. If Cowboys have a chance at playoffs, they'll bring him back. I would not be the least bit surprised if Dallas is in a good position and then Dak goes down. I would not be surprised if Jerry made the call. I would be surprised if Romo accepted the call because I don't think that they parted on great terms. Don't you think it's weird that Romo is the franchise's all-time leader in passing yards and touchdowns and things like that, and yet we didn't even have a press conference to announce his retirement? We did a whole dog and pony show for Jason Witten, and rightly so, but Tony just kind of like disappeared. Hell, the Dallas Mavericks gave a better retirement ceremony for him than the Cowboys did. So it's weird how that all broke down, and I don't think that you can look at that and say that they're on great terms. I think the only way Romo would even consider coming back would be if Dallas was like 12-1 and then Dak went down or something like that. I think it would have to be like a 2016 type scenario where you're looking at this team like, this is legit one of the best teams and they could do something, but oh no, the quarterback's down. And then even if Tony does come back, anytime Romo started a season in his later years, he was always kind of rough for the first 2 to 3 games at least. And you know, now you sit out an extra year, add a couple more years of age. You're talking late 30s now. And is that a guy you really plug in for the physical game of the playoffs and don't expect him to be broken in half the first time someone breathes on him? I don't know about that, but I don't doubt Jerry would make the call. I just doubt that it would happen. I would be shocked if it happened. Like it being Romo actually suited up on the Cowboys sideline or worse in the game. Bring back Kaepernick and Reed and make America whole again. Yeah, I agree, Eric Reed, absolutely. I mean, both guys are good enough that they should have jobs. I don't want to get into all the anthem stuff because that's not really football talk at that point. But both guys are good enough to have the jobs. There's a stigma around them that teams are choosing to steer clear of. And whether that's collusion or whether that's just, hey, I don't want to deal with being asked about this all season by the media, it is what it is. So Eric Reid is the second most recognizable face of that protest movement. So he's been kind of lumped in, unfortunately, with that as well. I don't think I trust any free agent quarterback to be winning a Super Bowl for Dallas with the wide receivers they have. Yeah, again, I think Dallas has potential with its receiving core. I think Michael Gallup will be really good. Will he be Dez good? Probably not, but Dez was the all-time leader in the franchise for reception touchdowns, so it's a different animal. So, in that regard, I think Gallup can be really good. I think Hearns can be a good complementary receiver. Tavon Austin's a cool gadget. Cole Beasley's a good slot receiver, but last year was a bad year. So, I don't know. I kind of look at it and wonder what we can expect moving forward. And I don't have a good answer, honestly. I think they need another receiver, and I think that should be one of the things they look at in round 1, if not top of round 2 next year. But we'll see. We'll see. They might not have their second round pick if it goes to Earl after week 3. We'll see. "2019, we can make a run if we draft right." I agree. If they get a top tier wide receiver and a tight end, I feel very different about this team if they get those two things. I feel like those two things and a safety are the 3 things they need right now as of today. They get Earl, they got that. They get a tight end and by the way, Schultz could develop ultimately into that tight end, or maybe Rico does. Who knows? But I'm saying as of today, right now, those are the 3 things I feel like they need. And I think they do get Earl, whether it's now or whether it's this next offseason. So it's just a matter of getting those other 2 things. They get those, and they are, I think, as stacked and complete as you could hope for. Now, some people might say quarterback, but I would argue, in that case, we saw in 2016, Dak, if he's a complementary piece as opposed to the engine itself of the car, he can be really good. I mean, he was Offensive Player of the Year, or Offensive Rookie of the Year in 2016. He was a Pro Bowler in 2016 and set the record for most wins by a rookie QB. So he can do it. You just got to have the right pieces. And if you're at that point, you should have all the right pieces. So if he fails then yeah, he's not the dude. Get him out. But we'll see once that time comes, if that time comes in that scenario. Brennan, they are young, maybe not 2019, but 2020. That could be too. I mean, like I said, they've got 2 guys over the age of 30, one of which is Sean Lee, who's probably still one of your 2 best defenders. Probably your most valuable defender, but, I mean, Sean Lee is legit. And he might have a year or 2 more of being legit. That might be the only kind of window you're kind of like hoping and praying for as far as Dallas being able to get back and make a run with him still being able to be relevant. But we'll see. I think that they're doing things in the right way, even if they're doing it in a shocking way. All in one offseason, they've lost the all-time leader in receptions, Jason Witten, all-time leader in reception touchdowns, Des Bryant, all-time leader in field goals made, and all-time leader in field goal percentage, Dan Bailey. 3 all-time leaders for them in one offseason. You add in Romo last year, all-time leader in passing yards, and it's insane the turnover they've had the last couple of years, but I feel like it was because they had to make that turnover. In the cases of Romo and Witten, we're talking about really old players, and now Witten's better than anything we got right now, but you got to go through some of those growing pains a little bit if you want to develop the younger talent. And if you think Dalton Schultz or Rico Gathers or any of them could be that next great tight end, you got to get him out there. You got to get him reps. By the way, I think Schultz will be also do not dress as well alongside LVE, which means your 1st and 4th rounder do not dress week 1 if that happens. And that should be some kind of storyline, but I don't know. Maybe it will, maybe it won't be. Might be other stuff we're more focused on. Might just be an interesting footnote. Brett Bender, Tony did give a sort of retirement speech when he first talked to the press after his injury. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a retirement speech. All it was like in terms of the starter. Yes, they did that whole thing. I know what you're talking about. It was a great speech. That was just him conceding the starting job to Dak. He played in that last game against Philadelphia, the one drive, threw the beautiful touchdown pass to Terrence Williams, and then that was it. He didn't retire. He was hoping to be bought out by Dallas or whatever so that he could go talk with other teams. But Dallas was trying to find trading partners that offseason, and it was only when it dragged out that he finally just said, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to retire. We couldn't trade me to Houston or Arizona, the two places I was looking at, I think, are the two. I know Houston was. I think Arizona was the other one. But we couldn't make that happen, so fine. I'm just gonna retire. So we didn't do a retirement one. We just did a passing of the torch one, which is different, I think. Are there any other quality safeties on the market? Well, April already mentioned Eric Reed. I think Eric Reed is a very good young safety. His baggage is that he's tied to the anthem protest, and that's caused every team to stay away from him till this point. So we'll see, but I don't know of another good top-end safety that you could find right now. I mean, Dallas let a couple of them get away. I thought the guy that the Cincinnati Bengals released, Iloka, something like that. I can't say his name. I only ever saw it written. I thought he would have been a good pickup, and they made zero effort to get him. He signed for a minimum to the freaking Minnesota Vikings, who didn't even need him. And I get it. He had his coaching staff connection there, so that fit for him. But if I was looking at that for Dallas, like, dude, if it's not Earl, go get this dude. And they made no effort. I could see Gallup going for 700 to 800 yards. That would be my ideal for him. That would be like, hey, things break right. I see him in the 600 to 700 yard range with 4 to 5 touchdowns. I think he's got that in him, and I think that's a damn good rookie campaign for him. I've seen some people who are trying to say he's going to be in the running, candidacy, however you want to say it, for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I feel like that's a little bold, but I do think he's going to be impressive. I think especially late in the year, you're going to look at him and be like, this is the new number one receiver, no question. This is the dude. Everyone else is just living in his world. Next year's draft will be more offensive or defensive heavy. I think it's going to be more offensive, frankly. I mean, you're always going to take cornerbacks. You're always going to look at safety. But I think Dallas needs receivers, 1 or 2, like high investment receivers, and they need a tight end. So I would say it's probably a year where you're looking at 2 of your first 3 being offense again. And honestly, I feel good enough about the defense. You'll also look at some linebackers, of course. I feel good enough about the defense where it stands today that I'm not hurting if they look offensive heavy next year in the draft. But we'll see. We have to get to that point, at least get to the end of this season for us to really be like, okay, what didn't work and where do we need to improve? And then you kind of build it out from there. So for that, of course, with Law Nation, Silver and Blue Nation, Big Game James, and myself, we'll be doing all those draft breakdowns when that time comes as well. I'll be at the Thanksgiving game against the Skins. A little worried about that game because we're coming off the road from Philly and Atlanta on a short week. What are your thoughts? It'll be tough in that regard for the reason you just said, and it could be a trap game. Of course, if they lose both of those games, Philly and Atlanta, then they're going to be looking at it like, damn, dude, we can't lose 3 straight. It's a 16-week season. Can't afford to do that. 16-game season, whatever, 17 weeks. Can't afford to lose 3 straight, so I don't know. I also think the Redskins are still a ways away. I think the Redskins are the bottom of the division, and I think Dallas will sweep them this year. They should also sweep the Giants, but who knows? Philly, I think, is going to be tough. For Philly, I just want to be able to steal one of those games, if possible. So, if I hadn't already mentioned it, I know I mentioned it earlier, but if you guys haven't already heard, this Sunday for the game, we're going to be doing a watch party at Henry's Tavern in Plano, Texas. It's going to be myself, DDP, and Law Nation, and we're going to be doing a live stream and basically commentating on the game. So you can't pick your commentators when you're watching an NFL game. This way, you can pick your commentators. You're getting Law Nation and you're getting me. And we're going to be giving you our analysis, our thoughts. We're still going to be interacting with you guys in the chat. We'll be interacting with the people who are there with us. If you want to come out and hang out with us, have a couple of drinks, have a good time, watch the Cowboys, kick off the season and hopefully move to 1-0, then all you got to do is come out to Henry's, tell them you're there for Phantom or for the Cowboys watch party. If you click the link in the description below, the Facebook link, it's got a coupon thing. You can take a screenshot of that or print it off if you want to go old school. But do that, show it to them, whatever, just tell them about it. You'll be good. You'll be good. You get a free appetizer that way. We'll hang out. We'll have a good time. And we got a 4-week kind of trial run with this, with Henry's. We'd like to do it for the full season, but what's going to decide whether or not that's successful and if we can keep doing it is, of course, the turnout. We got to be able to produce for Henry's and show that people want to see us and that people want to hang out with us and watch the game and have a good, fun, loose environment. So with that, come out and join us. Help us support the site, channel, all that. And big things are available to us in the future if we can make some stuff happen with this. So thank you guys for watching. It's funny, I did a stream a little bit earlier tonight, and then I found that it wasn't actually running on YouTube for whatever reason, because for some reason my YouTube live stream was set to private. I don't know why. I must have hit something without noticing. So I did a whole show on Facebook like an hour ago. And then I was like, oh, hell, I didn't even do it on YouTube. And, that's where all you lovelies are. So just because I love you guys so much, I literally basically did back-to-back shows rehashing a lot of my same talking points. Although you guys, because you were more interactive with the comments, I was able to give a lot of extra unique stuff and insight as well. But because I love you guys that much, I came on here and basically redid the show. Did it better, damn it. So appreciate you guys. Yeah, come out and hang out with us Sunday if you're in the area. We're going to be doing a lot of these. I want to extend these. I want to do these, of course, for the Cowboys season, but I also want to look to do them in the future, whether it be the Mavs or something like that. For Mavs, it'd probably be like a monthly thing, but we'll see, man. The sky is the limit. We're moving. We're growing. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Facebook, or like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram. What's another one that uses the phrase follow? Twitch. We got Twitch. Follow us, like us, subscribe, all that. If you really want to go that next extra level, man, you always got the options of Patreon. We got 3 classes of Patreon supporters here. Each one of the options will, I was going to go this way, but then I'd be flipping you guys off. That is not my intention. I'll start over here. You got 3 classes. You got the $1 level, which gives you a discount towards Dallas Prospect merch, as well as early access to future content we're going to be rolling out, including my retrospective series, which will basically alternate looking between significant seasons for the Mavericks or the Cowboys. It'll be not just an insight into the season, but you'll also see a lot there. There's a lot of writing involved to that, where there's kind of a storyline behind the actual season analysis itself. That takes a lot of work and a lot of production time. So you get early access to stuff like that, the behind-the-scenes stuff. You got the $5 level, which is a bigger discount for the merchandise and similar access. And then at the $10 level, you get a free T-shirt, early access, and you get your names and the credits basically as a Patreon supporter for any produced video we put out, whether it's a retrospective, whether it's one of my one-off kind of vlog posts or whatever where I talk about Dennis Smith Jr. can fly or whatever. Those are all options. You also have PayPal. If you want to do the PayPal me link, we got that down there as well. It's listed as Kirby Creative. Kirby Creative is my DBA. It's what Dallas Prospect basically is. But you got that as well. Yes, Brett Bender, you recently donated on Patreon. Appreciate you very much, sir. And your shirt will be on the way here this weekend. I've got the shirt. I'm making it probably, let's see, tomorrow's Friday, right? My days are crossed. Making it probably tomorrow or Saturday, and I'm going to get that in the mail to you. So that'll be in the mail no later than Monday morning. You'll get your shirt. And then what's the other option? Oh, yeah, the Super Chat thing right down here. So you got Patreon, PayPal, and then you got that gray $sign thing down there if you want to hit the Super Chat and donate that way. You always have those options whenever I'm doing a live stream. So anything is appreciated. It all goes back into the site. Basically, everything that comes in, we put towards things like software, equipment, like these live remotes. There's a lot of equipment I got to haul around, man. I got soundboards, I got mics, I got, in some cases, lighting, all sorts of stuff that I got to haul around just to make these things happen. So it's all appreciated. It all goes back into it. And ultimately, one day, I'd like to get to the point where I could look at hiring an editor to help me knock out these videos in shorter order. But we'll see. We'll see when we get to that point. But until then, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you for joining me tonight. I know football is on, so I guess because it wasn't a super exciting game, we still got a pretty good turnout over here. So appreciate you all. I will be with you guys Sunday. I might do a couple streams Saturday because I still got to get in my Mavs fast break and my college football week 2 of Big 12 football. So I'm just all over the place, man. But until next time, guys, remember, every legend was once a prospect. Salute.